The lecture hall went dead silent when Instructor Vexthul called Earth a mythical Deathworld classification, and three alien cadets burst out laughing, until the human adjunct professor, Jennifer Martinez, stood up from the back row and started unbuttoning her uniform jacket without saying a single word. Instructor Vexthul, Cadet Kyle Thas wheezed between laughs, his mandibles clicking with amusement. Surely the propaganda division exaggerates these classifications for recruitment purposes. Vexthul's sensory stalks stiffened. Cadet, I am reading directly from the Galactic Survey Corps database. Earth receives a Class 12 Deathworld designation based on... According to YouTube analytics, 99.6% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. On complete nonsense, Cadet Zelax interrupted, his throat sac inflating with what his species considered sophisticated humor. 1.0 gravitational units, diatomic oxygen at 21% atmospheric composition, predator-to-prey ratios of... He checked his datapad. Oh, this is rich. 1 apex predator per 100 square kilometers. He turned to the other cadets. My homeworld has triple those metrics, and we classify it as garden world, optimal conditions. 47 cadets from 12 different species filled the advanced xenobiology lecture hall at the Interstellar Naval Academy. Most were nodding along with Zilax's assessment. These were the best and brightest from their respective worlds, future fleet commanders and tactical officers learning to assess threat levels across the galaxy. Misunderstanding a species' baseline capabilities could mean catastrophic errors in combat situations. Jennifer Martinez had been sitting quietly in the back, grading tactical assessments on her datapad. She was 34 years old, a former emergency room nurse from Denver, who'd taken a position as adjunct professor teaching human medical procedures to alien medical corps trainees. She wore the standard academy instructor uniform, dark blue with minimal insignia. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. Nothing about her appearance suggested anything remarkable. She set down her datapad, stood up, started walking toward the front of the lecture hall. The temperature fluctuations alone should make complex life impossible, Cadet Jataro added, his translator struggling with his species' chirping laughter. -40 to +50 Celsius in a single rotation cycle? The database must be corrupted. Jennifer reached the front. She made eye contact with Vexthul, who gave a small nod of his central stalk. Then she turned to face the entire class, and without a word, she unbuttoned her uniform jacket. The laughter died instantly. She shrugged off the jacket, draped it over Vexthul's desk, and turned her back to the class. Her tank top revealed her shoulders, upper back, and arms. Even from the back rows, the scars were clearly visible. "This one," Jennifer said, her voice conversational, almost casual, touching her right shoulder where 4 parallel lines ran from shoulder blade to collarbone, each as thick as a finger. "Brown bear. I was 9 years old. Summer camping trip with my family in Colorado." Kale Thas's mandibles stopped clicking. His datapad clattered onto his desk as his manipulators went slack. Jennifer turned to face them, showing her left forearm where 2 puncture scars sat in a distinctive pattern. "Copperhead snake. Venomous. I was 12. Reached into some rocks looking for our dog's ball." Cadet Azila, a medical officer trainee, stood up abruptly, her scanner already out. The device beeped frantically as she pointed it at Jennifer from across the room. "That's... Instructor Martinez, those readings can't be correct. Your metabolic markers show exposure to hemotoxic venom, but you're alive, without augmentation. Without medical intervention," Jennifer finished. "Well, I got some anti-venom, eventually. Took about 4 hours to get me down the mountain to a hospital." She smiled slightly. "My dad had to carry me because I couldn't walk. The swelling was pretty bad." She lifted her right leg, rolling up the uniform pants to show her ankle, a ragged semicircle of scar tissue wrapped halfway around her calf. "Bull shark, surfing accident when I was 16, vacation in Florida." The room had gone so quiet that the ventilation system seemed deafening. Kael'thas was frantically accessing the galactic database, his fingers flying across his interface. His translator carried a tremor that hadn't been there before. Brown bears, Ursus arctos, average mass 272 kilograms, bite force 850 psi, classified as apex predator across 17% of North American continent. His voice faded. Survival rate for juvenile attacks without immediate military intervention, 4%. Copperhead venom composition. Azila was reading off her scanner, her voice hollow. Hemotoxic proteins, cytotoxic enzymes, LD50 lethal to 93% of cataloged sapient species within 30 standard minutes. She survived 4 hours? That's not possible. That's not... Bull sharks, Zilax whispered, his throat sac completely deflated. Karchar Highness Lucas, responsible for 67% of all recorded predator attacks on humans in Earth's oceans. Attack success rate on human targets, 31%. He looked up at Jennifer. You fought off a bull shark, as a juvenile, in its primary hunting environment. Well, fought off is generous, Jennifer said with a laugh. Mostly, I punched it in the gills and tried not to pass out. My brother dragged me to shore, needed about 80 stitches. She shrugged. Could have been worse. At least it wasn't a tiger shark. Vexthul's sensory stalks were trembling. Instructor Martinez, perhaps you should explain to the cadets that your background is military, special operations, enhanced combat training from childhood. I'm a nurse, sir. Was a nurse. Worked emergency room in Denver for 8 years before joining the academy staff. Jennifer sat on the edge of his desk, completely casual. These aren't combat injuries. These are just life. Growing up on Earth. Jataro's chirping had taken on a frantic quality. Just life? Just life? You survived 3 separate apex predator attacks before reaching reproductive maturity, and you're calling it just life. Oh, those aren't the apex predator attacks, Jennifer said. Those are just the ones that left visible scars. You want to hear about the time a moose charged our car, or when I got caught in a riptide, or that hiking trip where we had to outrun a wildfire? Azila sat down heavily, her scanner still beeping. I need to contact the medical director. This is... Instructor Vexthul. Her baseline physiology shows healing from dozens of significant trauma events. Broken bones that healed without regeneration tanks. Soft tissue damage that repaired through purely biological processes. Her immune system markers show exposure to... She checked her scanner again, as if hoping the numbers would change. Thousands of distinct pathogenic organisms. Thousands. Most of which would be fatal to my species. You've broken bones? Kael'thas asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Jennifer lifted her shirt slightly to show her rib cage. The scars were less visible here, but the way her ribs sat showed clear evidence of major trauma. Car accident when I was 22. Compound fractures, 3 ribs, punctured lung. They kept me in the hospital for about a week. A week? Zilax's voice had risen to a shriek. Compound fractures require cellular regeneration, skeletal restructuring, tissue grafting, minimum 40 days in medical suspension. We don't have that technology, Jennifer said simply. The bones just heal. Takes about 6 weeks for ribs. You keep them immobilized, manage the pain, and your body does the work. The silence stretched out. Instructor Martinez, Vexthul said carefully, perhaps you should explain Earth's baseline environmental conditions for the cadets who may have misunderstood. Jennifer nodded. Okay, so Earth rotates every 24 hours, which means temperature swings between day and night. Depending on where you live, that can be anywhere from a 10-degree difference to a 70-degree difference. Celsius, she added. In my hometown, we regularly see temperatures from -30 in winter to +40 in summer. That's a 70-degree annual swing. She pulled up a hollow image on the room's display. This is Denver, where I grew up. Elevation 600 meters above sea level. The air is thinner up there, about 85% of sea level oxygen concentration. People just live there, millions of them. They jog, have kids, go to work. Jotaro was making a sound like a kettle boiling. Chronic hypoxic conditions? For their entire lives? We don't consider it hypoxic. It's just normal. Jennifer flipped through images. This is my family's beach house in North Carolina. Hurricane zone. Severe storms with wind speeds over 150 kilometers per hour. Storm surge that can flood entire coastal regions. We go there for vacation. To relax. This is my aunt's place in Oklahoma. Tornado Alley, we call it. Severe rotating storms that can level entire towns. Wind speeds over 400 kilometers per hour in the biggest ones. She's lived there for 30 years. This is my cousin's cabin in Minnesota. Winter temperatures regularly hit -40. Summer temperatures hit +35. 100-degree temperature swing annually, and that's not even considering the most extreme parts of the planet. Kael'thas was shaking, literally shaking. You vacation in hazard zones. You build permanent settlements in regions with catastrophic weather patterns. You raise offspring in areas with... He checked his datapad again, and his mandibles clicked in distress. There are 7 different species of venomous snakes in Colorado alone, 15 species of large predators, avalanche risk, wildfire risk, flash flood risk, lightning strike density that would require evacuation protocols on any civilized world. And we call it beautiful, Jennifer said softly. We call it home. My mom still lives in that house where I grew up. She's 67 years old. She hikes those mountains every weekend. 67? Azila's voice was faint. Your life expectancy in those conditions is over 60 years? Average life expectancy is about 78 years, Jennifer said. My grandmother lived to 93, in the same conditions. No medical augmentation, no genetic enhancement, no environmental controls beyond basic heating and cooling. Vexithul was accessing something on his own interface. His stalks moving in patterns Jennifer had learned meant deep distress. Cadets, I am now sharing the full Earth classification report. Class 12 Deathworld. Highest possible designation. Survival probability for non-adapted sapient species. Less than 1% for more than 72 hours. The report recommends full environmental suits, armed security, and immediate evacuation protocols for any landing parties. He looked at Jennifer. Instructor Martinez, how many humans currently live on Earth? Last I heard, about 8 billion. The number hung in the air like a bomb. 8 billion, Jotaro repeated. 8 billion humans living on a Class 12 death world, without environmental suits, without armed security, without... His translator made a sound like static. You're all insane. Your entire species is insane. We're not insane, Jennifer said, and for the first time there was an edge to her voice. We're adapted. We evolved there. It's not a death world to us, it's just Earth. She stood up, walked to the center of the teaching platform. You want to know why you should never underestimate humans in combat? Why our soldiers seem to shrug off injuries that would hospitalize your best troops? Why we volunteer for the hazardous assignments that other species refuse? She turned in a slow circle, making eye contact with every cadet in the room. It's because we come from a world that tries to kill us from the day we're born. Every breath we take is in an atmosphere that would corrode your equipment. Every step we take is in gravity that would crush your bones over time. Every meal we eat contains proteins and compounds that would poison most of you. We get infections, bacterial, viral, fungal, parasitic, and our immune systems just fight them off. Usually, sometimes we need help, but our baseline assumption is that our bodies will handle it. She held up her scarred forearm. I got injected with hemotoxic venom that would kill most of you in minutes. It hurt, a lot, but my body broke down those proteins, filtered out the toxins, repaired the tissue damage, because that's what human bodies do. We heal, without technology, without intervention. We just heal. Kael'thas raised a manipulator shakily. Instructor Martinez, why did you volunteer to leave Earth? If that's your home world, if you're adapted to it, why come to space? By your own description, the rest of the galaxy must seem... He trailed off. Jennifer smiled. Safe? Yeah, space is way safer than Earth. I mean, you've got your occasional reactor breach or hull puncture, but those are rare. Predictable. You can prepare for them. She laughed. On Earth, you can be driving to work and suddenly there's a flash flood, or a tornado, or a deer jumps through your windshield, or you step on a rusty nail and need a tetanus shot, or 1,000 other random things that can kill you on any given Tuesday. My daughter is 5 years old, she continued, and her voice softened. She's growing up on the Academy Station. 0.8 G. Climate-controlled, no venomous animals, no large predators, no severe weather. She thinks the observation deck storms are scary. These little electrical displays the station does for entertainment. Jennifer shook her head, smiling. She has no idea what a real storm looks like, what thunder sounds like when it shakes the walls, what it feels like to know that nature could kill you at any moment, and there's nothing you can do but respect it and try to survive. Is she safer? Azila asked quietly. Physically? Absolutely. But she's missing something too, that edge, that awareness that life is precious because it can end, that strength you develop from surviving in a world that doesn't care about you. Jennifer picked up her uniform jacket and shrugged it back on. We call it character, resilience. My parents called it building backbone. Vexthul cleared his vocal passages. Cadets, I believe we need to revise today's lesson plan. Instructor Martinez, would you be willing to provide a more comprehensive briefing on human baseline physiology and its combat implications? Sure, Jennifer said, but I should warn you, I'm really not that impressive by human standards. My scars are pretty minor. I've never been in a war zone, never had any serious illnesses, never broken any major bones besides the ribs. I'm just average. Average, Zelax repeated numbly. You want impressive? Talk to my uncle. He's a firefighter, runs into burning buildings for a living. Or my cousin who does search and rescue in the mountains. Or my friend who's a marine biologist. She swims with the sharks on purpose for research. Jennifer grinned. Compared to them, I had a pretty safe childhood. Kael'thas made a sound like air escaping from a punctured seal. A pretty safe childhood. You were attacked by a brown bear. Yeah, but I survived, and learned a valuable lesson about storing food properly when camping. She checked her chrono. Okay, so what do you want to know first? Azila raised a manipulator. You mentioned getting pneumonia earlier. What is pneumonia? Oh, it's a lung infection, bacterial or viral. Your lungs fill with fluid, makes it hard to breathe. Pretty common on Earth. And you just kept working with a lung infection? I mean, I took some antibiotics and rested when I could, but yeah, I had bills to pay. Worked through it. Jennifer saw their expressions. What? Instructor Martinez, Vexthul said carefully. A lung infection severe enough to impair breathing would be classified as a critical medical emergency for most species, requiring immediate intensive care and at least 20 days of medical suspension. Huh. Yeah, mine cleared up in about 10 days. Felt pretty rough for 3 or 4 days in the middle there, I'll admit. She laughed. Of course, this was back on Earth. I had pneumonia twice as a kid, too. Once when I was 7, once when I was 14. It sucked, but you know, you get through it. Jotaro was entering notes frantically on his data pad. Repeat exposure to potentially lethal respiratory infections. Survived multiple instances without advanced medical technology. This is impossible. This is why you don't mock the word Deathworld, Jennifer said quietly. The lecture hall went completely silent again, because you're sitting here, safe and comfortable, in controlled gravity and filtered air and climate regulation, learning about places you've never been and can't imagine surviving, and you're laughing. You're laughing at the idea that somewhere could be so dangerous that just living there makes you stronger. She walked back to her seat in the rear of the hall, picked up her datapad. But Earth is that place, and 8 billion of us live there, and we love it. We write poetry about its beauty. We paint its landscapes. We sing songs about going home to it. Because it's ours. It made us what we are. She sat down, crossed her legs casually. So when you're out there in the fleet someday, and you see a human doing something that seems impossible, walking off an injury that should have killed them, adapting to an environment that should be lethal, surviving conditions that would break anyone else, remember this moment. Remember that we come from a world that tried to kill us every single day, and we not only survived it, we thrived. We didn't conquer Earth. We're not stronger than it. We just learned to live with something that wanted us dead. We learned to respect it, adapt to it, survive it. And that's the difference between us and most of the galaxy. Jennifer looked down at her datapad, then back up at the silent cadets. Any questions? Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Right then, Instructor Vexthul, I'll email you a curriculum outline for human baseline physiology. Should probably be a full semester course. She stood up, gathering her things. I've got office hours in 20 minutes if anyone wants to discuss this further. She walked toward the exit, then paused at the door. Oh, and Cadet Kael'thas? He jumped. Yes, instructor? Next time someone tells you something sounds impossible, maybe consider that your definition of possible might be a little limited. The galaxy's a big place. Lots of things in it that don't fit in neat little boxes. She smiled. See you all tomorrow. The door slid closed behind her. For a long moment, nobody in the lecture hall moved. Then Azila spoke, her voice shaking. I need to completely revise human medical protocols. Everything we know is wrong. Everything. I need to contact the tactical division, Kael'thas said numbly. Human combat assessments we've been treating them like enhanced soldiers. Like they had augmentation and training that made them resilient. But they're not enhanced. They're baseline. That's just what they are naturally. Zilax was staring at his datapad, which showed a rotating image of Earth. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It looked beautiful, peaceful. I almost applied for the Earth Exchange program, he whispered. I thought the Deathworld classification was a clerical error. I would have died there. Within 72 hours, Vexthul confirmed. The atmospheric composition alone would have caused respiratory failure for your species. The gravity would have stressed your skeletal structure past tolerance. The microbial exposure would have overwhelmed your immune system. And that's assuming you didn't encounter any of the predators, environmental hazards, or severe weather patterns. Jataro was reading something on his interface, and his translator carried a note of absolute horror. I'm looking at human recreational activities, things they do for fun. They climb mountains, deliberately. Mountains where the oxygen concentration is 50% of sea level. Mountains where the temperature is 40 below zero. Where avalanches can occur without warning, and they do this for fun. They dive underwater. Below 50 meters depth, with only mechanical breathing apparatus, where pressure would crush most of our species, where predators hunt. For fun. They jump out of aircraft, with only fabric parachutes, from 4,000 meters altitude. For fun. Azila was checking her medical database, her manipulators trembling. Human children have a 57% chance of breaking at least one bone before reaching maturity. 57%. They consider this normal, expected. Parents don't even consider it a major medical crisis. They just take them to a medical facility, get the bones set, and send them home with instructions to take it easy for a few weeks. I broke my tertiary support bone during training, Kael'thas said quietly. I was in medical suspension for 48 days. It was the most painful experience of my life. They gave me the option to withdraw from the academy program. He looked at the door, where Jennifer had exited. She broke 3 ribs and punctured a lung and was out of the hospital in a week. Vexthul's sensory stalks drooped. I need to file a report with the academy commandant. Our entire combat doctrine regarding human assets needs to be revised. We've been assigning them to hazardous duty because we thought they were uniquely trained. But it's not training, it's just what they are. They're from a Deathworld, Azila said, an actual legitimate Class 12 Deathworld. And we laughed. The lecture hall remained silent for another long moment. Finally, Kael'thas stood up. I'm going to her office hours. Why? Zilax asked. To apologize, and to learn, because if I'm going to be a fleet commander someday, I need to understand the species I'll be serving with. Really understand them, not just assume they're like us. He gathered his materials, and because she's right, my definition of possible was too limited. One by one, the other cadets stood up, gathering their things. I'm coming too, Azila said. I have about 1,000 medical questions. I'm signing up for every human-related course the Academy offers, Jotaro announced, starting with that physiology class she mentioned. Vexathul watched them file out, heading toward Jennifer Martinez's office. When the lecture hall was empty, he sat down at his desk and pulled up the official contact form for the Academy Commandant. Subject line: Urgent. Human baseline assessment requires complete revision. He began typing his report, trying to find the words to explain what had just happened. How a simple lecture on planetary classifications had turned into a revelation that would change how the entire Academy, and perhaps the entire galactic fleet, viewed their human personnel. In her office, Jennifer Martinez was reviewing her schedule for the afternoon. She had office hours now, then a meeting with the medical department about updating their trauma protocols. Then she needed to prep for tomorrow's class on human immunology. After that, she was planning to hit the gym. They'd finally installed a proper 1.0 G section, and she wanted to get a decent workout in. Her communicator chimed. A message from the Academy Administrative Office. Professor Martinez, please be advised that 17 cadets are currently waiting outside your office for consultation. Shall we ask them to make appointments? Jennifer smiled and replied, No need. Send them in. This is going to be a long session. She stood up, stretched, and felt the familiar pull of the scars on her shoulder. Memories of a Colorado summer, the smell of pine trees, her father's panicked voice calling for help while her mother applied pressure to the wound. The helicopter ride down the mountain, the surgeon telling her parents she was lucky to be alive. She'd been 9 years old. She'd thought it was an adventure. That was Earth. That was being human. Surviving things that should kill you and calling it a story to tell later. The door chimed. Come in, she called. Kael'thas entered first, his mandibles held in a posture Jennifer had learned meant contrition. Instructor Martinez, I want to apologize for... Already forgotten, she interrupted kindly. You didn't know. Now you do. That's why we're here, right? To learn. The other cadets filed in, finding seats or standing along the walls. 17 young beings from across the galaxy, all looking at her with a mixture of awe, fear, and desperate curiosity. So, Jennifer said, sitting on the edge of her desk in that casual way that made them all slightly nervous now that they knew what she was. Who's got questions? Every manipulator, appendage, and limb in the room went up. Jennifer laughed, that easy, natural human laugh that came from a place of genuine warmth. Okay, this is going to take a while. Let's start with the basics. Who wants to hear about why humans drink ethanol for recreation? The expressions of absolute horror that crossed their faces made her laugh even harder. It was going to be a very educational afternoon. Outside in the corridors of the Interstellar Naval Academy, word was already spreading. The human instructor had shown her scars, had explained what Earth really was, had made 17 senior cadets go white, or whatever color their species went when truly terrified. The word Deathworld would never be spoken lightly again, not by anyone who'd been in that lecture hall, not by anyone who'd heard the story. And Jennifer Martinez, former emergency room nurse from Denver, Colorado, Earth, went back to doing what she did best, teaching the rest of the galaxy that humanity wasn't special because they were stronger or smarter or better. They were special because they'd survived, because they'd learned to laugh in the face of a world that wanted them dead, because they'd looked at impossible odds and decided to thrive anyway. That was the real lesson. That was what it meant to be human. And the galaxy was finally beginning to understand.